One word to describe Caitlin Clark.
Amazing. A beast. She is the truth.
It's intense. Caitlin Clark is off that shit now. She let it all slide the first year. They was pushing her and all that. She like, you know what?
I'm in here.
I'm here.
I'm here.
I'm here, and this is what it's gonna be this year.
Caitlin Clark finally stood up for herself. No more.
Before the numbers started piling up, and before the record books began tracking her every move, Caitlin Clark was already doing something most rookies never accomplish. She had everyone paying attention. Typically, first-year players enter the league focused on fitting in, earning minutes, and adjusting to the speed of the professional game. Clark took a completely different path. She stepped onto the court with confidence, played without hesitation, and immediately made her presence impossible to ignore. Whether it was launching shots from well beyond the arc or threading passes through openings nobody else seemed to recognize, she played with a style that demanded attention. She didn't wait for the spotlight to find her. She became the spotlight, and one of basketball's most respected legends took notice. Larry Bird has never been known for speaking often or handing out praise casually. That's exactly why his comments about Caitlin Clark carry so much weight. When a player with Bird's legacy publicly acknowledges what he's seeing, people listen. In his view, Clark isn't simply putting together impressive performances. She's accomplishing something that feels genuinely historic. What makes this even more remarkable is the timing. Women's basketball is experiencing a transformation, and Clark has become one of the central figures driving that change. Her impact stretches far beyond points, assists, or highlight reels. She has become the player everyone is talking about, from Hall of Fame coaches to former All-Stars and basketball legends. The conversation around her isn't slowing down. In many ways, she's setting the agenda. Every game creates new headlines, new debates, and new moments that capture the attention of fans across the sports world. This isn't a temporary surge of excitement, it's a movement that continues to grow. Clark isn't just another talented young star enjoying early success. She's become a game-changing presence, someone capable of shifting expectations and redefining what audiences believe is possible. Every arena feels different when she's on the floor. Every appearance feels like an event. Some observers already call her the biggest attraction in basketball. Others see her as the future face of the sport. But regardless of which side people take, one thing is undeniable. This goes far beyond a promising rookie season. We're witnessing a player leave a lasting mark on the game in real time. Long before the triple-doubles, long before the record-setting pace from three-point range, and long before the endless statistical milestones, Clark had already achieved something rare. She captured people's imagination. She became a story that extended beyond the court and reached every corner of the sports world. And it's not just fans fueling the discussion. When Stephen A. Smith, one of the most influential and recognizable voices in sports media, starts talking about Caitlin Clark without being prompted, that tells you everything you need to know. These aren't reactions to questions from someone else. He's bringing her up because he recognizes the significance of what is happening. That's the level of attention Clark has generated. The biggest personalities in sports aren't merely responding to the conversation, they're joining it. And more often than not, Caitlin Clark is the reason that conversation exists in the first place.
I totally applaud what Caitlin Clark is doing. She's putting the WNBA first. She's saying, yo, we matter first to me. We should matter first to the...
Few voices in sports media command attention quite like this one. Known for speaking his mind, challenging narratives, and rarely handing out compliments without reason, he's become one of the most influential figures in the industry. That's why his comments about Caitlin Clark stand out. He's not simply praising her talent or defending her against criticism. He's recognizing something much bigger: her impact, her mindset, and the way she approaches the game. Clark isn't just putting up impressive numbers. She's helping reshape the conversation around women's basketball. Every time she steps in front of a microphone or walks onto the court, she sends a clear message. This sport deserves the spotlight. It's not an afterthought or a secondary attraction. It's a major part of the basketball world, and she's helping make sure people pay attention. What separates her from many young stars is that her influence extends beyond individual success. Every made shot, every creative assist, and every public appearance contributes to something larger than her own career. She carries herself like someone invested in the growth of the entire league, not just her personal achievements. That attitude hasn't gone unnoticed. The basketball community sees it, media personalities see it, and increasingly fans around the world are seeing it too. Then there's another level of recognition altogether. When your name starts being mentioned alongside Magic Johnson, it means the conversation has moved far beyond statistics. Comparisons like that aren't made lightly. Magic wasn't remembered solely because of his talent. He became a transformational figure who changed how the game was played, how it was marketed, and how people connected with basketball itself. His influence reached far beyond the box score. He helped redefine an era. That's why it carries so much weight when Magic Johnson points to Caitlin Clark and sees similarities in the way she impacts the sport. He's not just acknowledging her skill set or her highlight plays. He's recognizing a player whose presence is expanding the audience, generating excitement, and creating meaningful change around the game. That kind of praise represents more than admiration. It reflects a belief that Clark's influence extends beyond the court and into the future of basketball itself. And when a legend like Magic Johnson sees that happening, people tend to listen.
Because, to your point, they dominated in college, and
as you both did.
yes, and then they brought it over to the WNBA, just like we brought it to the NBA. We changed the NBA. They changed the WNBA.
What makes Magic Johnson's praise so remarkable is that it goes far beyond a simple compliment about talent. This isn't just a Hall of Famer admiring a gifted player. He's drawing parallels between Caitlin Clark's influence and the kind of impact that he and Larry Bird had on the NBA during one of the most transformative periods in basketball history. That's not a comparison anyone makes casually. Magic understands what it means to capture the attention of an entire sports world. He recognizes the rare ability to attract fans, generate excitement, and create interest that extends well beyond the game itself. When he watches Clark, he sees a player who embraces the spotlight rather than avoiding it. She doesn't just perform under pressure, she thrives in it. More importantly, her impact reaches beyond her own team. Clark is helping drive interest across the entire WNBA. Every sold-out arena, every spike in viewership, and every new fan discovering the league contributes to a larger shift taking place throughout women's basketball. The sport needs growth, it needs new audiences, greater exposure, and stronger momentum, and Clark has become one of the biggest forces helping push that progress forward. So when Magic Johnson connects her current influence to the kind of basketball revolution that helped reshape the NBA in the 1980s, that's about more than recognition. It's an acknowledgement that something historically significant may be unfolding right in front of us, and the praise doesn't stop there. Imagine hearing one of the most accomplished coaches in basketball history say he would have loved the opportunity to coach you. That's the kind of statement that demands attention. Mike Krzyzewski, better known as Coach K, isn't just another legendary coach. He's one of the defining figures the sport has ever produced. His resume speaks for itself. 5 NCAA championships, 3 Olympic gold medals, and a long track record of developing players who went on to become NBA stars. Over the years, Coach K has worked with some of the greatest talents basketball has ever seen, including LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Kevin Durant, and Stephen Curry. He spent decades evaluating elite players at the highest level, so when someone with that experience watches Caitlin Clark and sees qualities that stand out even among the game's biggest stars, it says a lot. He's identifying traits that go beyond scoring ability or highlight real moments. He's recognizing a unique blend of leadership, competitiveness, vision, and basketball intelligence that coaches dream about building around. Coming from a figure like Coach K, that's not ordinary praise. It's the kind of endorsement reserved for players who have the potential to leave a lasting mark on the sport.
Well, she's terrific, and it'd be easy to build something on her because she's very young. The best thing she does is pass. She's a magical passer, and she has a great feel for the game. So, I mean, what her coach did, I would have done exactly what she did. Make sure she handles the ball a lot, and she'll make everybody better.
The scoring is impossible to overlook. The deep three-pointers have become a signature part of Caitlin Clark's game, and the highlights seem to appear everywhere. But when Coach K evaluates her, he looks beyond the shots that dominate social media. What stands out to him is her ability to control the flow of a game without forcing the action, her court awareness, and her exceptional playmaking instincts. That's why he emphasizes her passing, and when a coach like Mike Krzyzewski calls someone a great passer, he's talking about much more more than assist totals. He's talking about vision, timing, anticipation, and the ability to see opportunities before anyone else on the floor recognizes them. Those are the subtle qualities that often decide games, even when they don't show up prominently in the box score. Clark doesn't simply react to what is happening around her. She often seems to predict it before it unfolds. She orchestrates the offense, creates opportunities for teammates, and consistently elevates the players sharing the court with her. For Coach K, that combination is what makes her special. This is a coach who has spent decades working alongside some of basketball's greatest minds and talents. When he says he would have embraced the way Clark plays the game, that's a powerful endorsement. What he sees isn't just an elite scorer. He sees a leader, a floor general, and a basketball thinker with a rare understanding of the game. Sometimes, however, the most meaningful praise comes in the simplest form. In an era filled with carefully crafted opinions, viral clips, and endless debate shows, a genuine reaction can carry extraordinary weight. That brings us to Luka Doncic, one of the NBA's brightest stars and one of the most difficult players in the world to defend. Doncic isn't known for giving long speeches or dramatic answers. He tends to say exactly what he means and move on. So when he was asked a straightforward question on camera, who his favorite women's basketball player is, his answer came immediately: Caitlin Clark. No hesitation, no lengthy explanation, just her name. In many ways, that response perfectly reflects Luka's personality. Direct, honest, uncomplicated, but it also reveals something important. Doncic understands what it's like to enter a league with enormous expectations, carry the weight of constant attention, and still dominate games at the highest level. He recognizes the traits that separate elite players from everyone else. When he looks at Clark, he sees more than talent. He sees a player who controls games, dictates tempo, and performs with the kind of confidence that elite competitors instantly recognize in one another. That's what makes his answer significant. He's not a WNBA commentator. He's not analyzing ratings or discussing storylines. He's simply naming the player who immediately comes to mind when asked who stands out most. And when that recognition comes from one of the best players on the planet, it means something. There are countless ways to praise greatness, but for a player like Luka, whose own game is built on feel, creativity, and instinct, a simple acknowledgement may be one of the strongest compliments possible. It shows that Clark's game resonates with basketball's elite. Her influence isn't limited to college basketball or the WNBA. Players who compete at the highest level recognize what she's doing and respect it. With just 2 words, Luka Doncic delivered a clear message. Caitlin Clark isn't merely attracting attention. She has earned the admiration of the sport's biggest stars. And then there are the voices who measure influence on an even broader scale. Colin Cowherd has built a career discussing more than wins and losses. He often focuses on the athletes who transcend sports and become cultural phenomena. When he talks about figures like Tiger Woods, LeBron James, or Taylor Swift, he's discussing impact, the ability to reshape public interest and change the way people view an entire industry. These are individuals who didn't just succeed within their fields, they transformed them. So when Cowherd places Caitlin Clark into that conversation without hesitation, it speaks volumes. He's not simply praising her basketball skills, he's pointing to something much larger, a player whose influence extends beyond the court and into the culture itself, someone capable of changing the way people engage with the sport and accelerating its growth in ways few athletes ever achieve.
Your favorite women's basketball player?
Caitlin Clark.
Really?
This isn't about putting down Angel Reese or taking anything away from what she has accomplished. The point is to recognize just how rare a player like Caitlin Clark truly is. Athletes who become genuine phenomena don't come along very often. They're the ones who move the needle in ways that go far beyond the scoreboard. They drive television ratings, sell out arenas, boost merchandise sales, and turn regular season games into major events that fans feel compelled to watch. That's the kind of influence Clark has generated. Her impact isn't limited to the WNBA. It extends across the entire basketball landscape. Instead of waiting for the sport to gain more attention, she's helping create that attention herself. New fans are tuning in, conversations are growing louder, and interest in women's basketball continues to expand. When Colin Cowherd places her alongside names like Tiger Woods and LeBron James, he's not talking about future possibilities or projecting what she might become someday. He's talking about something much more more immediate. He's talking about presence. Certain athletes become the center of the conversation whenever they compete. Their games feel important before they even begin. Fans, media members, and even casual observers want to know what happened, what was said, and what comes next. Clark has reached that level. She's no longer simply a popular player. She's become one of the defining figures people associate with the sport itself. Whether people support her, criticize her, or simply want to see what she'll do next, they're paying attention. And with that level of visibility comes enormous responsibility. Being one of the most recognizable faces in a league means every performance is analyzed, every decision is debated, and every moment becomes part of a larger discussion. Success brings attention, but it also brings scrutiny. Clark operates under that spotlight every time she takes the floor. In many ways, that's part of what makes her story so compelling. The expectations continue to grow, and so does the pressure. When a player becomes the face of a league, officially or unofficially, the target naturally gets bigger. Opponents want to beat that player. Critics examine every mistake. Every game carries added significance. And as Michelle Thompson points out, not all of that pressure comes from the competition across the court. Sometimes the challenges arise from the environment surrounding the player as well. When expectations reach extraordinary levels, the spotlight can become just as demanding as any opponent.
Angel Reese is a good player. She's not a phenomenon. Tiger was. LeBron was. Taylor Swift is. Caitlin Clark.
A former NBA champion and the father of an NBA All-Star, Michelle Thompson has voiced a perspective that many fans and analysts quietly share. Caitlin Clark operates under a level of scrutiny that few players ever experience. The spotlight surrounding her doesn't stop when the game ends. Every performance, every comment, every reaction, and every decision becomes part of a much larger conversation. The attention she receives magnifies nearly everything she does, whether positive or negative. According to Thompson, that level of visibility can sometimes create an unusual dynamic. In trying to avoid appearing biased toward a player with so much attention, some observers may end up swinging too far in the opposite direction. As a result, Clark can find herself evaluated through a different lens than many of her peers. The expectations become higher, the criticism becomes louder, the margin for error becomes smaller. Yet despite that reality, she continues to step onto the court and perform under enormous pressure. She handles the weight of those expectations as though it's simply another part of the job. And that's often what happens when an athlete begins to influence the culture of a sport. When someone changes the conversation, attracts new audiences, and reshapes public interest, people don't always know how to respond. Some embrace it, others push back against it, but either way, the attention becomes impossible to ignore. Clark has learned to navigate that environment while keeping her focus on basketball. There are analysts who break down her game. There are commentators who debate her impact. There are endless opinions from every corner of the sports world. And then there's Jeff Teague. Teague has built a reputation for being direct, candid, and refreshingly honest. He isn't known for carefully crafted talking points or polished media answers. He tends to say exactly what he thinks, whether people agree with him or not. So when the conversation turns to Caitlin Clark, he doesn't filter his opinion through public relations language or media-friendly phrasing. He simply gives his genuine assessment, and because that honesty has become part of his identity, people tend to pay attention when he speaks.
That flagrant foul that she committed the other day, I thought it was a hard foul. I didn't think it was a flagrant foul, but I think they do that, Dan, because they overreact to everything Caitlin does. Is they don't want to show like they're showing any favoritism to her. So we got to upgrade it to a flagrant foul, because if we don't, then people say, well, we're protecting her by not upgrading it to a flagrant foul. So I think that's why the referees overreacted in that play.
Jeff Teague's point isn't about creating controversy or stirring up unnecessary drama. He's not trying to pit Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese against each other. Instead, he's questioning a narrative that has followed both players for years. His argument is simple. Why are two young stars who are helping elevate women's basketball so often framed as opponents in a rivalry that seems much bigger to the public than it does to them? The conversation goes beyond the players themselves. It's about the constant comparisons, the endless debates, and the tendency to turn every headline into a battle between two individuals rather than a celebration of what both are accomplishing for the sport. That's what Teague is really highlighting. He's pointing to a cycle where every achievement is viewed through the lens of competition. Every success by one player is treated as if it somehow diminishes the other. And in the middle of that ongoing debate, Clark continues doing what she has done from the beginning, showing up, competing, and playing her game. Yet despite her production and accomplishments, the attention she receives often brings criticism alongside praise. Teague isn't attacking Angel Reese. He's questioning why recognition for Clark sometimes generates resentment instead of appreciation. Why does acknowledging one player's success often seem to require pushing back against it? Why can extraordinary accomplishments become a source of controversy rather than simple admiration? The reality is that Clark's reputation hasn't been handed to her. Every highlight, every long-range three-pointer, every creative assist, and every packed arena has contributed to the position she's earned. The attention surrounding her exists because of what she's consistently produced on the court. That's why Teague speaks so directly about the subject. He doesn't dance around his opinion or try to soften it with carefully chosen language. He simply says what he believes. For him, the discussion isn't about choosing sides between players. It's about recognizing excellence when it appears. And whether someone is a fan of Clark, Reese, or any other star in the league, Teague's larger point remains the same. Athletes who help move a sport forward deserve respect for the impact they're making. That's exactly what Clark has been doing. But every superstar eventually reaches a turning point. There comes a moment when the athlete who was once celebrated as the exciting newcomer becomes the player everyone is targeting. The admiration remains, but it is joined by heightened expectations, criticism, and a growing desire from others to knock them off the top. For Caitlin Clark, that transition happened remarkably fast. The spotlight intensified almost overnight. The attention became bigger, the reactions became stronger, and as former NBA star Gilbert Arenas has suggested, Clark didn't shy away from that reality. Instead of resisting the role that came with her fame, she embraced the challenge that accompanies being one of the most talked about figures in the sport.
If you being real, what do Angel Reese get that Caitlin Clark don't get?
That kind of reaction usually only happens when a player starts disrupting more than just the scoreboard. It happens when they affect opponents mentally, challenge their comfort zone, and change the rhythm of the game itself. Caitlin Clark has never entered the league trying to blend into the background. Her goal has always been to make an impact, whether it's confidently walking away after hitting a clutch three-pointer, signaling her belief in her own game, or playing with an edge that gets under opponents' skin. Clark competes with a level of self-assurance that naturally draws attention. Gilbert Arenas doesn't view that as a negative. In fact, he sees it as part of what makes elite competitors special. When a player consistently performs at a high level and delivers night after night, confidence stops looking like arrogance and starts looking like belief. Arenas understands that distinction better than most because he built his own career around that same mentality. This isn't criticism coming from someone on the outside looking in. It's recognition from a former star who understands how powerful confidence can be when it's backed by production. Arenas knows firsthand that swagger becomes a weapon when opponents know you can deliver on every promise your game makes. That's why he sees something different when he watches Clark. He doesn't see disrespect. He sees control. Clark isn't just putting points on the board. She's influencing the pace of the game, dictating momentum, and bringing an emotional energy.
Clark was a bad guy. She was the one that was with everybody doing all this, waving, turning her back on everybody. Everybody's like, oh, she's a cock.
He tends to say exactly what he thinks, whether people agree with him or not. So when the conversation turns to Caitlin Clark, he doesn't filter his opinion through public relations language or media-friendly phrasing. He simply gives his genuine assessment, and because that honesty has become part of his identity, people tend to pay attention when he speaks. Jeff Teague's point isn't about creating controversy or stirring up unnecessary drama. He's not trying to pit Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese against each other. Instead, he's questioning a narrative that has followed both players for years. His argument is simple. Why are two young stars who are helping elevate women's basketball so often framed as opponents in a rivalry that seems much bigger to the public than it does to them? The conversation goes beyond the players themselves. It's about the constant comparisons, the endless debates, and the tendency to turn every headline into a battle between two individuals rather than a celebration of what both are accomplishing for the sport. That's what Teague is really highlighting. He's pointing to a cycle where every achievement is viewed through the lens of competition. Every success by one player is treated as if it somehow diminishes the other. And in the middle of that ongoing debate, Clark continues doing what she has done from the beginning, showing up, competing, and playing her game. Yet despite her production and accomplishments, the attention she receives often brings criticism alongside praise. Teague isn't attacking Angel Reese. He's questioning why recognition for Clark sometimes generates resentment instead of appreciation. Why does acknowledging one player's success often seem to require pushing back against it? Why can extraordinary accomplishments become a source of controversy rather than simple admiration? The reality is that Clark's reputation hasn't been handed to her. Every highlight, every long-range three-pointer, every creative assist, and every packed arena has contributed to the position she's earned. The attention surrounding her exists because of what she's consistently produced on the court. That's why Teague speaks so directly about the subject. He doesn't dance around his opinion or try to soften it with carefully chosen language. He simply says what he believes. For him, the discussion isn't about choosing sides between players. It's about recognizing excellence when it appears. And whether someone is a fan of Clark, Reese, or any other star in the league, Teague's larger point remains the same. Athletes who help move a sport forward deserve respect for the impact they're making. That's exactly what Clark has been doing, but every superstar eventually reaches a turning point. There comes a moment when the athlete who was once celebrated as the exciting newcomer becomes the player everyone is targeting. The admiration remains, but it is joined by heightened expectations, criticism, and a growing desire from others to knock them off the top. For Caitlin Clark, that transition happened remarkably fast. The spotlight intensified almost overnight, the attention became bigger, the reactions became stronger, and as former NBA star Gilbert Arenas has suggested, Clark didn't shy away from that reality. Instead of resisting the role that came with her fame, she embraced the challenge that accompanies being one of the most talked about figures in the sport. That kind of reaction usually only happens when a player starts disrupting more than just the scoreboard. It happens when they affect opponents mentally, challenge their comfort zone, and change the rhythm of the game itself. Caitlin Clark has never entered the league trying to blend into the background. Her goal has always been to make an impact, whether it's confidently walking away after hitting a clutch three-pointer, signaling her belief in her own game, or playing with an edge that gets under opponents' skin. Clark competes with a level of self-assurance that naturally draws attention. Gilbert Arenas doesn't view that as a negative. In fact, he sees it as part of what makes elite competitors special. When a player consistently performs at a high level and delivers night after night, confidence stops looking like arrogance and starts looking like belief. Arenas understands that distinction better than most because he built his own career around that same mentality. This isn't criticism coming from someone on the outside looking in. It's recognition from a former star who understands how powerful confidence can be when it's backed by production. Arenas knows firsthand that swagger becomes a weapon when opponents know you can deliver on every promise your game makes. That's why he sees something different when he watches Clark. He doesn't see disrespect, he sees control. Clark isn't just putting points on the board, she's influencing the pace of the game, dictating momentum, and bringing an emotional energy that can shift an entire arena. She has the ability to frustrate opponents while simultaneously beating them on the scoreboard, a combination that often makes great players even more difficult to handle, and that's part of the reason she generates so much conversation. The reality is simple: if she weren't producing at such a high level, far fewer people would care about her celebrations, her confidence, or her style of play. The attention exists because her performance forces people to pay attention, but her impact extends beyond individual games. Caitlin Clark has become more than a talented player generating highlights. She has evolved into a major attraction within the sport, a player fans specifically tune in to watch, and one whose games are circled on calendars long before tip-off. That's exactly what came up when WNBA legend Cynthia Cooper joined Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes for a conversation. The focus wasn't solely on statistics, awards, or win-loss records. Instead, the discussion centered on something even more revealing: who people are showing up to see. Because in today's basketball landscape, Clark has become one of the biggest reasons fans buy tickets, watch broadcasts, and follow the league. Her presence has turned ordinary games into must-watch events, making her one of the central figures driving interest in women's basketball today.
I want to see in the WNBA All-Star game, I want to see Sabrina Ionescu shoot against Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, me too.
I want to see that three-point shooting contest.
Yeah, facts.
That's dope.
Hopefully it'll be there. It's in Indiana this year, right?
Yep.
This isn't just casual basketball talk or a passing observation. When a Hall of Famer makes a statement like this, it reflects something that many people throughout the sport already recognize. Caitlin Clark's appeal reaches far beyond the boundaries of the WNBA. Fans aren't simply interested in checking scores or following standings. They want to watch her play. They want to see the moments she creates, the shots she takes, and the impact she has whenever she steps onto the court. She has become one of those rare athletes whose games feel like events rather than ordinary contests. That's why potential matchups involving Clark generate so much excitement. Take the idea of a showdown with Sabrina Ionescu. On the surface, it's just another matchup between talented players. But in reality, it represents something bigger. It's the kind of star versus star battle that naturally captures attention, creates anticipation, and gives fans a reason to tune in. Those moments are great for everyone involved. They elevate the players, create compelling storylines, and help build the kind of rivalries and marquee attractions that professional sports thrive on. And the reason those conversations carry so much energy is simple: the Caitlin Clark effect. When fans specifically want to see one player, even during exhibition events or all-star festivities, that's more than popularity. That's genuine star power. That's the kind of draw that turns a player into a major attraction. Then there's Larry Bird. Bird has never been known for handing out praise simply to be polite. Throughout his career, his words have carried weight because they are usually reserved for situations he truly believes deserve recognition. That's what makes his attention toward Clark so meaningful. As criticism, scrutiny, and expectations have continued to surround her, Bird has noticed something important about the way she responds. Instead of getting distracted by the noise, she keeps returning to the court and letting her game do the talking. He has watched her deal with pressure, absorb criticism, and face constant attention while continuing to produce at a high level. To Bird, that isn't just impressive, it's familiar. Few people understand the experience of being targeted because of success better than Larry Bird. Throughout his own career, he experienced the challenges that come with standing out from the crowd and carrying enormous expectations. That's why he appreciates what he's seeing from Clark. He sees a player who refuses to back down, who remains focused despite the distractions, and who continues to perform under intense scrutiny. In many ways, he recognizes the resilience that great competitors often share. And for a legend like Bird, that ability to withstand pressure while continuing to excel may be every bit as important as the points, assists, and highlights that make the headlines.
Caitlin Clark finally stood up for herself. No more staying quiet. Seeing her shut down Angel Reese was just the start. Now it's her turn to go at the other woke players who thought she wouldn't fight back.
Larry Bird's message couldn't have been more straightforward. What impresses him isn't just Caitlin Clark's production on the court, it's the way she responds to challenges. Rather than getting caught up in criticism or distractions, she answers with her performance and her confidence. That approach resonates with Bird because it mirrors the mentality that defined his own career. He built his legacy by competing with an edge, embracing pressure, and refusing to back down from anyone. When he watches Clark stand firm in the face of scrutiny, he sees a player proving she belongs at the highest level. And when a basketball icon like Bird publicly supports a player, the message reaches far beyond that individual. It's a signal to the entire basketball world that what they're witnessing is real. Then there's LeBron James. For more than 2 decades, LeBron has been one of the most influential figures in sports. His opinions carry enormous weight. A single comment from him can dominate headlines, spark debate, and elevate a moment into something much larger. That's why his early season praise of Caitlin Clark stood out. When Clark recorded a triple-double and LeBron acknowledged it publicly, it wasn't just another social media post. It felt like recognition from someone who understands exactly what comes with carrying extraordinary expectations. After all, LeBron knows what it's like to enter the spotlight at a young age and have every move analyzed. He understands the pressure of being expected to deliver greatness every night. He's lived with that reality for most of his life. So when he recognizes Clark, he's doing more than celebrating one performance. He's acknowledging a player who is thriving under the same kind of intense attention that only a select few athletes ever experience. His message wasn't about potential. It wasn't about what she might become in the future. It was about what she's already accomplishing right now. And that's significant because LeBron doesn't hand out praise indiscriminately. He studies the game, respects excellence, and tends to recognize players who genuinely stand out. When he speaks up, people listen. For Clark, that recognition represents something bigger than hype. It's respect from one of the most accomplished players the sport has ever seen. It signals that she's no longer viewed simply as a promising young talent, talent. She's already become part of the larger basketball conversation, and her story is still in its early chapters. Some of the strongest endorsements come from people who understand firsthand what it means to perform under pressure. That's where Rashad McCants enters the conversation. McCants knows what it's like to deal with expectations, media attention, and the constant judgment that comes with professional sports. He understands how quickly public opinion can shift and how difficult it can be to navigate the spotlight. So when he speaks passionately about Caitlin Clark, he's drawing from experience rather than speculation. One of his boldest observations was that Clark carries herself with the kind of presence normally associated with the biggest stars in basketball. His point wasn't simply about her scoring ability or highlight plays. It was about how she handles the immense attention surrounding her, and that may be one of the most impressive aspects of her rise. The shooting range is remarkable. The passing ability is elite. The competitiveness is obvious. But what truly stands out is her ability to remain composed while operating under a microscope. The expectations have been relentless. The criticism has never disappeared. Every game seems to generate another round of discussion, debate, and analysis. Yet through all of it, Clark continues moving forward. McCants believes that ability to thrive amid constant scrutiny places her in rare company, not just within the WNBA, but among the most closely watched athletes in all of professional sports. He's not necessarily arguing that she's already one of the greatest players ever. His point is that she carries herself with an understanding of the moment and a comfort with the spotlight that few athletes possess. Whether people agree with that assessment or not, the fact that the conversation is happening at all says something important. The discussion has already moved beyond simple popularity. When people begin talking about legacy this early in a career, it means the impact is being felt on a much larger scale. Love her or criticize her, one thing is impossible to deny. Caitlin Clark commands attention. That's why this feels bigger than a breakout season. Clark isn't simply living up to expectations. She's helping reshape the conversation around the sport itself. She's becoming one of the central figures in its growth, influencing how fans, media members, and even fellow athletes view the game. If this trajectory continues, people may look back on these seasons as the foundation of something truly historic. Not just the rise of a star, the emergence of a player who became the face of a movement, a catalyst for change, and perhaps the beginning of a legacy that will be discussed for generations. Because what Caitlin Clark is doing right now feels larger than individual accomplishments. Her presence is changing perceptions, expanding audiences, and redefining what's possible for women's basketball. She has stepped onto one of the biggest stages in sports and embraced every challenge that comes with it. And if the story so far is any indication, she's only at the beginning of what could become an extraordinary journey.